Hello everybody, my name is Karryshh and welcome back to another recap video. This time it's a Cambodian Japanese horror, Tenement. The movie was half in Cambodian, half in Japanese and a little bit in English. With this diverse lingual base, the story actually revolves pretty much around Cambodian horror gore with some Japanese twist. It was a one-time watch and I think you will like it, so watch the video till end. On top of that, if you're new to my channel, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up because it's free for you and it's something that keeps me motivated to bring more of these recaps. They require a lot of work. With that said, sit back and relax as I recap Tenement. So the story starts with a girl running around in a strange building looking for her mother. She seems terrified, and as she keeps running, something invisible grabs her. Through a narration, we learn that something significant happens on New Year's Day in this apartment, but we're not told what it is. From here, the scene jumps years ahead and we're introduced to Soria, a young woman whose mom recently passed away. She was collecting her mother's ashes, and after that, Soria heads back home. She actually lives in Japan with her boyfriend, and a little later, her boyfriend Daichi comes home and tries to comfort her. We find out that Daichi is a director and Soria is a cartoon artist. One day, the couple sat together and sorted through Soria's mother's belongings when Daichi finds an old tape player and a bunch of tapes sealed inside a Cambodian box. Along with those, they find photos of Soria's mother from when she was young, living in some old apartment. But Soria has no idea where this place is, and she's never really met most of her relatives either. Seeing all this, Soria gets lost in thoughts about her mother, and that night she can't sleep because every time she tries, she dreams of that strange place. The next day, Soria heads to her office where her boss, Mr. Hong, reviews her latest manga. We learn that Soria's manga is based on a childhood incident when she used to live in Cambodia with her mother, and something strange happened to her there. But Mr. Hong feels the story in the manga is incomplete. He tells her that if she wants this manga to become popular, she'll need to dig deeper into her past and connect more with that childhood incident. Now you see, Soria was born in that place and she lived there for most of her childhood, but then something happened that made them move to Japan. Now that evening, Soria and Daichi were out for a walk where Daichi revealed that he had already figured out where the apartment building in the photo was located. He suggested that if they went there, Soria might find some relatives and she could use that to add depth to her manga. They then decided to plan a trip to Cambodia to track down Soria's family, and a few days later, the two arrived in Cambodia and they had made all the arrangements. At the airport, they met a guy named Thep, who is supposed to take him to the apartment. Their driver was named Jam, and after all the introductions, Jam drove him in his car to the building. Along the way, Daichi was taking photos, and Jam tried to make small talk with him in English, because Daichi didn't know Cambodian. When Jam found out that Soria was half Cambodian, he started talking to her about the apartment. But the moment Jam heard the name of that apartment building, he seemed startled. Then every time he tried to tell Soria something about the building, Thep would indirectly shut him down. Then after a while, they finally arrived at the apartment and the place was more like a colony and it was in complete disrepair, dirty and run down. After dropping him off, Jam gave Daichi his number and told him to call anytime, even at night if they needed a ride. Thep then led Soria and Daichi into the apartment. The place was steeped in culture and Daichi looked excited as he darted around. At one point, they saw a girl performing a traditional dance in the hallway, but there was something unsettling about it. Thep guided him past her, but just as they moved forward, people began pouring out of their apartments. Everyone stopped what they were doing and stared at Daichi and Soria in an unsettling way. Finally, Thep takes him to an empty apartment and we find out that this couple is renting this place. Apparently, Thep is the property dealer for this building. Not only that, but he had responded to Soria's messages online super quickly, and it turns out he even knows Soria's mother's sister. At this point, Mao, Soria's auntie, shows up. She was overjoyed to see Soria and we find out that the last time she saw her was when she was a child. Mao then says something kinda strange, that Soria was destined to return to this place one day. After the introduction, Soria and Daichi explore the building and come across a religious shrine. It has two adult statues and oddly enough, a statue of a child hidden in the darkness. It was strange because child statues usually aren't included in shrines like this. That evening, Soria and Daichi go to Mao's house for dinner, where they meet her husband Nimul and their daughter Alice. Everyone bonds over dinner, and afterwards Alice and Soria play together until Mao comes and takes Daichi and Soria with her to meet someone new. Mao brings them to this red room filled with ritualistic items, and in the middle of the room on a small stage there was an old woman sitting in a rocking chair. Mao feeds her milk, but the woman struggles to drink it properly. Then Mao introduces Daichi and Soria to this woman, who greets them with a creepy smile, and we figure out that she might be incredibly important to this community, though the movie doesn't explain why just yet. Her name was Sarin, and the whole experience was super weird, but on the way back, Soria and Daichi just laughed it off and didn't take it too seriously. They went home, crashed, and were fast asleep, but in the middle of the night, there was some commotion in the apartment. A bunch of people started walking through the hallways with incense sticks, and we were also shown these flashes of a ritual scene which was really bloody. It wasn't clear if the blood was human or animal, but one thing was obvious: the people in this building were definitely up to something evil. The next day, Alice come over to play with Daichi and Soria. While Daichi was busy taking pictures, Soria heard a voice coming from a locked room, even though no one was there. Later, Alice took the couple on a tour of the building, which was mostly in ruins. At one point, they came across a small room positioned up on the roof with an entrance that was really high up. It seemed like it might have been used as a punishment room for something. It was fascinating, and Soria was quietly observing all of this, thinking about how it could inspire her story. Now, during this tour, Alice suddenly disappeared. Soria and Daichi panicked and started searching the entire building like crazy. In the end, they found Alice on the ground floor, but how had she made it down there so quickly from the top floor was a mystery. That night, while Daichi was going through the photos he'd taken today, he noticed something strange. In one of the pictures, there was a little girl, but neither of them had seen her before. Just then, they heard a noise from upstairs and the lights go out. They went outside to check and realized the power was out across the entire building. The hallways were eerily quiet, except for the jingling sound of anklets. Following the sound, we see a girl performing a traditional dance in the hallway, and at first, it seemed normal. But then it took a creepy turn. The dance became demonic, and the girl started walking backward upside down. However, nothing actually happened to the couple that night, and the next day, they had plans to go to somewhere else for a couple of days. But Soria couldn't go because their boss called the last minute and demanded the story to be ready within a week. Now Soria insisted Daichi to go on the trip alone while she stayed back to work. Daichi agrees and leaves, and that night, Soria was home alone, working while listening to her mother's old tapes. In one of the tapes, her mother was talking to her sister about the apartment and how this place was evil. That's why years ago, Soria's mother had to leave Cambodia. Hearing this, Soria decided to talk to Auntie Mao. She ended up going in the red room and found Mao sitting with that old woman. The woman suddenly started screaming and her face turned evil. Freaking out, Soria went back to her room and tried to sleep, but she kept feeling unbearably hot. Then sometime after midnight, a group of people dressed in white surrounded her. They grabbed her arms and legs, and when Soria woke up, she was terrified, but she knew there was no escape. They presented her with a tray and forced her to eat some kind of herbal mixture. They then splattered pig's blood all over her, and Soria realized that they had moved her bed to the rooftop. On the roof, then we see Sarin, who was sitting in her chair. Sarin then stood up, crawled over to Soria and climbed on top of her. Suddenly her face turned evil and Soria then woke up, realizing it was just a nightmare. After this, when she got out of the bed, we noticed remnants of herbal mixture still on the bed, which made us question if it was a dream or not. Later that day, she found a pile of sandals outside her room, and soon she discovered that Sarin had died and her funeral was taking place. Seeing all this, Surya was completely shaken, but just after Sarin's death, the building became a hotspot of creepy demonic activity. That little girl, the one Daichi had captured in the photo, was now wandering around the building, asking people if they wanted to play hide and seek. She first approached a young boy, but moments later, the boy ended up dead. Another man committed unalivement and someone else fell from the rooftop, all because of that little girl. Seeing all that, Surya was terrified, but that's when a woman confronted her, yelling that everything happening was because of Surya's mother, and she accused Surya's mother of lying to everyone. Right now, it wasn't clear what she meant, but soon the entire building turned against Surya. Auntie Mao locked her in a room and told her to not come out. Surya was obviously completely confused and panicked, and she tried calling Daichi, but he wasn't answering. Her mental state started to unravel, and she kept hearing the voice of the little girl echoing in her head. The girl sounded like she was playing hide and seek with her mother, and then suddenly the little girl appeared in Surya's room. She was just sitting there, staring at her, and Surya was paralyzed with fear. Surya was then afraid so much that she ended up passing out. When she woke up, it was already evening, and Daichi had returned to the apartment. He had found her unconscious and he brought her around. The first thing then Surya asked was about the little girl and where did she go. Daichi tried to calm her down and insists that she must be having a bad dream because there was no girl in the room, but Surya's mental health was clearly making Daichi feel uneasy. Then Auntie Mao came in and she brought a weird shake for Surya. Out of nowhere, Surya suddenly remembered the girl's name, Meta. But how she remembered it, she had no idea. She asked Mao about Meta, and the moment Mao heard the name, she smiled, almost too much. But then she claimed she had never heard that name before, which was obviously a lie. Mao then starts forcing Surya to drink that weird shake, but by now Surya was suspicious of everything in this place and she refused to drink it. Even when Surya said no, Mao kept on trying to make her drink it. This made Daichi furious and he grabbed the shake and spilled it all over Mao. Mao then leaves in anger, but Daichi clearly knew that something strange is going on. He told Surya that they need to leave this place immediately. However, right now Surya didn't want to go because she wasn't feeling well, but Daichi insisted, saying that it was probably Mao's food that was making her sick. Daichi started packing their stuff, but before they could leave, the people from the building barged into their room. Without saying a word, they attacked both of them and knocked them unconscious. The building folks then tied their hands and feet and dragged them away somewhere. Later that night, the building residents started chanting and walking through the hallways. We then see Surya, who woke up and found herself lying in that infamous red room with Auntie Mao sitting beside her, talking about strange, cryptic things. According to Mao, Surya had to pay for her mother's sins. Mao explained that the little girl, Meta, had chosen Surya and the residents of the building had to obey Meta's will. That's when it all clicked. Meta wasn't a little girl. She was a demon who lived in the building and used the child's form to manipulate people. The building residents worshipped Meta, which is why they had child statues in the shrine. Now Meta had decided to possess Surya's body and the residents were performing a ritual to make it happen. Now actually you see, this explains the sin of Surya's mother. It seems like Meta had chosen Surya for possession when she was a child, but when Surya's mother found this out, she fled with Surya to Japan to save her. This left Meta without a host, and that's why when Surya returned, strange things started happening in the building because Meta could finally take over her body. But you may ask where the demon was staying all these years, and the movie is gonna answer that question really soon. Finally, the residents perform the ritual and poor Surya can't even move. That's when Meta, in the form of that little girl, appears and enters Surya's body in a blood form. Surya then passes out and finds herself trapped in another dream. Now, in this dream, she is wandering around the building and memories from the past are flooding back. She remembers the building being littered with dead bodies, all because her mother had angered the demon. Suddenly, Soria ends up on the rooftop where the sky is blood red. There, she gets a vision of the past that includes the little girl who was crying for her mother. It now becomes clear that the little girl we saw in this movie was actually a human in the past, but the cult member killed her mother, so she cannot save her daughter, and then they put that demon into that girl's body. And here was the crazy part. Sarin, the woman who had been living in this building, was actually Meta. She had grown up, but once Sarin died, the demon left her body. The demon then wanders around the building in her childhood form and started killing other people, which forced the cult to find a new host as quickly as possible. Now in the dream, Soria was terrified and she started running, screaming for help, but no one was around to hear her scream. Then she sees herself, but it was another version of her, one that was actually in full control of the demon. Terrified by her own reflection, Soria kept on running, and pages from her manga starts flying all around her. She eventually ends up in a small red room where the walls started closing in on her. She was gasping for air and panicking so badly, and she had no idea what to do. But right when it feels like the end, Daichi manages to wake her up in the real world. Somehow, he fought his way through and saved her just in time. Now actually see, Soria was actually battling the demon in her dream, and if the demon had killed her in there, the demon would have taken over her body in real life. Now Daichi dragged a confused and terrified Soria out of the building. She was still shaken and struggling to understand what was happening. The whole building was obviously hunting for Soria, so now she and Daichi are sneaking around, trying not to get caught. At one point, they almost run straight into Auntie Mao, but acting fast, Daichi picks up an iron rod. There, Soria takes the iron rod and waited for Mao, and when she comes near, she swings the rod at Mao, but then she freezes in shock when she realizes she accidentally killed Mao's daughter Alice. It was a horrible moment, but there was no time to dwell on it. Daichi grabs Soria and they run, and meanwhile Mao was left sobbing uncontrollably over her daughter's body. Daichi and Soria then finally make it out of the building, where Jam is already waiting with his taxi. They jump in the car, but Soria sees the demon standing in the apartment, staring directly at her. Now Daichi actually saved Soria here, but he doesn't realize that the demon was already inside Soria's body. They escape that cursed building and return to Japan, where Soria finishes her manga and gets it published. However, in the final scene, we see Daichi bringing Soria a glass of milk. Now, if you remember, Auntie Mao also gave Sarin milk, which the demon seemed to love. That's when we realize that Soria is now in full control of the demon, and maybe Daichi was under the demon's influence as well. That's why he's bringing the milk. After this, the movie ends, but with a chilling reveal. We see that the demon forced Soria and Daichi to return to Cambodia. Then Daichi was locked up in that same punishment room we saw earlier, and Soria, now completely possessed, becomes just like Sarin, and that's where the movie ends. So this was the recap video on the movie Tenement, and I hope you have liked it. If you have, then please subscribe the channel and give this video a thumbs up. I really need your support to grow further. If you wanna watch this movie, there's a link to my Telegram channel in the description box. If that link does not work, just go to Telegram and put my channel's name in the search bar. How and when you can find it on Telegram will be revealed on the channel, so go join that. I'm mostly active on Insta, so go follow me there as well. And look into my other channel where we discuss about the mysteries of the world. All the links are in the description box. For now, I'll see you all in the next one. Till then, stay awake, cause they always see you.